Greetings. My name is Brother Scott, and I believe that with faith, courage, and discipline, we will prevail. All right, so for today's video, we're going to continue with our topic of understanding female attraction. All right, so when it comes to building our dynasty, we want to we need to understand what women are attracted to, because if we want to build with someone, well, we have to be able to attract that person. Okay, and we talked about the 4 primary attributes that women are attracted to in a man. We talked about at the bottom is physical appearance. Next is financial security. After that is social status. And then the last thing, most important is confidence. So today we're going to talk specifically about social status, why that's important, why that weighs a little bit more than physical appearance or financial security. And we're going to delve into the topic a bit deeper. Okay? So, social status. All right. Women are attracted to men with high social status because high status men are granted advantages in society that lower men struggle to obtain. Let me repeat that. Women are attracted to men with high social status because high status men are granted advantages in society that lower status men struggle to obtain. Our female ancestors desired a high status man so they and their children could benefit from his status. Let's stop right there. So if you guys haven't noticed, I always go back in the days of old. I always go back before civilization. We have gotten so used to this society that we live in and so used to the instructions that we learned from school, we just don't go far back enough in history or prehistory to understand why things are the way they are today. And so you always have to go back. You always have to go back in the days of old, before civilization, in order to make sense of why we do and we act the way we act. Okay? And so, as I've stated, in the days of old, our female ancestors desired a man with high status so they and their offspring, their children, can benefit from it. Okay? So let's say, for example, like you're in your hunter-gatherer band, and let's say you are an elder. You're an elder within that band, and you're also the best hunter, right? Now, these societies were egalitarian, so for the most part, people were treated fairly, but you were given a little bit more reverence if you were a great hunter, if you had the best photographic memory, if you were very knowledgeable on, which berries, which fruits to eat and not to eat, because you were vital. You were vital to that community. You were vital to those people. You were vital to that band. So you were given a little bit more reverence than the average person because you contributed more than the average person. You understand? So a woman being able to be partnered with someone of that status, someone of that stature, well, guess what? That reverence is going to be applied to her and her children as well, to some degree. And that happens today. For example, if you become the president of the United States and you're married, guess what? Your wife becomes the first lady of the United States. And there is an entire department that is dedicated, in the government, there's an entire department that is dedicated to that first lady. You understand? Same thing in like a church. If you're a pastor of your church, your wife becomes the first lady. and she more or less gets some of the privileges that come along with being the pastor's wife. You understand? All right, so let's continue. Your status is determined by your past or current ability to provide value to society or your social group, as I've stated before. It is also determined by your ability to provide value within a given situation. Okay, let's break that down real quick. All right, so your status is determined by your past or current ability to provide value to society or your social group. All right, so the easiest example, okay? We look at sports, right? And we look at the sports, we look at the guys that get all the endorsements, the guys that are always in the news, the guys that are always the top scorers, right? Like, OG LeBron, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, these guys. And these guys, within their team, they're somewhat put on a pedestal because they contribute so much to their team. And this is why they get the sponsorship deals. This is why they're always the one that are speaking on the behalf of the teams during the press conference, because of the value that they provide, which elevates their status. It's one thing to be an NBA player, but it's one thing to be an elevated NBA player. You understand? And they provide value within their society or social group, and they're treated accordingly. Now, I also said that status can be determined based on your ability to provide value within a given situation as well. All right, so let's say, for example, let's say you work at a job, and let's say on that job you get various breaks. You get smoke break, you get lunch break. And let's say during the smoke break, let's say you're mid-level, let's say you're middle management. All right, but you smoke for whatever reason. All right, and let's say during the smoke break, a group of guys, you guys get together, you guys talk about the day, you guys talk about sports or whatever the case may be. And there's one guy in that group. Let's say, as far as work, he's on the bottom of the totem pole. He's an entry-level guy. He's kind of learning the job. He's a decent worker, and he's at the bottom as far as work is concerned. But once you guys get in the smoke pit, once you guys are taking that smoke break, this guy has a lot of charisma, and he's funny as hell, and he tells the most funniest jokes you've ever heard of. In that given situation, even though he's on the lower end of the totem pole at work, his status is elevated in that smoke pit, in that smoke area. People want to hear him talk. People want to laugh. People want to see what he's going to say out of his mouth next. So in that given situation, his status is elevated. But when it's time to go back to work, he's back on the lower end. You understand? Does that make sense? Another example, because status is one of those difficult things to explain. So I'm going to try to break this down as best as I can. Okay, so let's say, for example, let's say you got a United States Marine. Let's say they were a scout sniper, and they went to SEER school, so they know how to survive in the wild. They've done some dangerous missions that you can't talk about because they're top secret or whatever, right? You need a certain clearance in order to hear about it, whatever, right? So you take this guy. He was a scout sniper for 4 or 5 years. He left the Marine Corps because he was hurt, right? And let's say he decides he's going to pursue a career in software engineering, right? He's not that great at it, but it's something he's interested in. He can do the basic things. And let's say he goes to Silicon Valley to go work within a startup because they got a new application that they're trying to build, okay? Now, him just starting that job, it's going to put him at the bottom of the status hierarchy, right? The CEO and the CFO and all the people that have the titles, they're going to be at the top. he's an entry-level worker. So he's going to be at the bottom. You understand? Now, let's say a couple months in, they decide, hey, we should do something fun to build the morale of our group of guys. We've been working hard, working on this application. We've been working 12 hours a day, and we should do something as a team building exercise. And let's say someone decides, hey, let's go camping. Let's go camping. All right. And the guy, remember, we have the scout sniper guy who's been to SEER school, who has experience living on the land, and everyone goes camping. All right. Now, let's say for whatever reason, a terrible storm takes place during this camping trip. And it's so bad that the group of guys, they get lost. They get lost in the woods somewhere. Well, guess what? That guy, the guy that was at the bottom of the status hierarchy at work, now that these guys are lost in the woods, where do you think his status is now? Now that they got to find their way out of the tree line, find their way back to society, find their way back to the road that they traveled on to get to their camping site. His status is elevated in that given situation. You understand? And once he uses his skill set that he learned in the military to get them back to safety, now his status will go back to what it was when they were at work during their working situation, but it'll be a little bit higher because in that given situation, he was the one with the knowledge. He was the one with the skills that contributed to the community, contributed to their survival. All right, so I know I spent a lot of time on that, but I just wanted you to understand what I'm talking about when I say status, okay? And so now we're going to talk about how this plays into attraction, okay? Now that you have a better understanding. All right, so as I said, your status is determined by your past or current ability to provide value to society or your social group. It is also determined by your ability to provide value within a given situation. Let's move on. You can attain status. You can attain status by association if you are related or connected to someone who already has status. However, I will not be discussing this method of gaining status because you have little to no control over this. So let's talk about this real quick. So let's say I wanted to be a professional boxer, okay? And let's say I was some no-name guy nobody really thought much about, but I want to make a name for myself. Now, doing it on my own is going to take some hard work. But if I was related, let's say I was related to Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson decided to help promote me, that's going to elevate my status, even though I've yet to throw a punch yet, even though I've yet to do a professional match yet. Mike Tyson being my uncle or being my cousin is going to elevate my status just by association, just by relation. And we see this a lot. We see this a lot where you have celebrities. Like, I ain't going to name any specific celebrities, at least right now, but I'm sure you've seen where someone has done well in their own right, and then their child comes along, or their wife comes along, or their husband comes along, and they benefit from being associated with that individual. And a lot of times this takes place in the workplace, which is a form of nepotism, right? People may, have positive or negative views on nepotism, but it's just a part of the human experience. And it's always been that way. I've explained it before, why women were attracted to men with status back in the day before civilization, because that association with that individual that has status, well, you benefit from it, okay? But the reason why I bring that up is because I'm not going to go into details about that. You don't have control over, You have very little control over who you're related to. You have very little control over, who you're associated with. You understand? Right? Now, let's talk about this. Men with high social status tend to be competent in a highly sought after skill. We talked about this. People look up to others who have skills or knowledge that can bring value to society or their social group. Just like I used the example in sports, or the example of the Marine, given in that specific situation where him and his buddies got lost during a camping trip. Okay? Men with high social status tend to have excellent networking abilities. This is important. Good networking skills indicate high social intelligence. It also indicates the ability to foster relationships that you can benefit from. This gives you greater access to resources and opportunity. Okay? And if you have greater access to resources and opportunity, well, guess what? Your partner can also benefit from you having greater access to resources and opportunity as well. You understand? Is this all making sense? Okay? My last point. Men with high social status have social proof and are respected within their society or their social group. So again, same thing. Like I said, the guy that's the best hunter, well, guess what? He's going to be looked up to. Regardless of if it's an egalitarian community or not. He's the best hunter. He provides value to the community. It's natural to look up to him because we depend on this guy. You understand? And so to tie this back into attraction, right? All of the benefits, all of the positives of having social status, a woman, a potential partner benefits from you being associated with someone that has that. You understand? And so when it comes to social status, this is why this can weigh a lot more than physical appearance and financial security because of the bigger advantages that you get from that status. You understand? So one of the things that you probably remember is in school, right? In school, if you were the quarterback or you were the best player, basketball player, or if you had some type of position, right? In that school, well, guess what? A lot of the girls would flock to that individual. Oh, he's the quarterback. Oh, I'm dating the quarterback. Oh, I'm dating the class president. You understand? The reason why women gravitate to those types of people in those positions and that status, like I said before, this is all rooted in biology, okay? It's all rooted in biology. So when you look at an individual who has money, who has who has physical appearance, who's physically attractive and has money, but they lose out to the guy that has status, it kind of makes sense now, right? It makes sense now because this goes into our subconscious, right? Something that made sense long time ago still lives within us today. You understand? So, yeah, there you go. All right. So I just explained social status as it relates to what women are attracted to in men. And in our next video, we're going to talk about confidence. Confidence is the most important attribute when it comes to attracting women. Okay? And if you want to build a dynasty, you're going to have to understand this concept. Now, if you haven't already, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and donate. And always remember, with faith, courage, and discipline, we will prevail.